this meeting of the Washington County Board of Education. I call this meeting to order and declare a quorum. We have 6 members and our student board member present this evening. This time I invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. This evening we have a 4th grade student from Potomac Heights Elementary School, William McDonald, who will be leading us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Hello, William.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
How are things at Potomac Heights?
Pretty good.
Pretty good? All right. So, William, do you have some folks with you that you would like to introduce this evening?
Sure. This is my brother James and my dad Matt and my principal Miss Forrest.
Well, thank you for being here with William this evening. William, we're happy to have you here. And looking over my notes, I see that you have some favorite subjects in school.
Yeah.
You want to tell me what they are?
Yeah, I like ELA and science.
And for those watching who don't know what ELA is, could you explain what ELA is?
It's English Language Arts.
So, do you like to read?
Yeah.
Do you like to write?
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's wonderful. I think that's wonderful. And you like science.
Yeah, I do.
Any particular part of science you like? You like to do wacky experiments, or?
I like elephant toothpaste.
I'm not familiar with that.
It's a fun experiment.
Okay, okay. And I understand that in your family you have an educator. Is that correct?
I have 2 educators.
You have 2 educators,
My dad and my mom.
your mom and your dad. And can you tell us where they teach?
My dad teaches out in West Virginia at this place called, what's it called? OVI Intermediate School.
Uh-huh.
And my mom teaches at Tech High, which is actually kind of down the road from here.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, down the road. Well, how lucky you are to have 2 teachers for your parents. There's nothing better than that. One more thing I'd like to talk with you about is something that's in my notes. And it says here that you enjoy writing stories and scripts, and that you have an aspiration to become a movie director.
I do.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, actually last week I got a movie kit to make movies, so I'm going to start doing that soon.
Oh, will you have a casting call when you know the movie that you're going to be directing? Will you put out a call for a cast?
I think so.
All right, you'll have open auditions?
Yeah.
All right, I'll be watching for that. William, thank you so much for being with us this evening and leading us in the pledge. And we wish you all the best for this school year that's just off to a start. Colleagues, anyone have something they'd like to ask? Or?
It seems to me that I've heard you've also been enlisted to be in several plays.
I have.
And where would they be?
2 of them are at the Maryland Theater, and the other one's at this place that's also on the street of the Maryland Theater called the Black Box.
We certainly say break a leg.
Thank you.
Thank you, William, for being here. Okay, colleagues, we'll have the approval of this evening's agenda. If there's a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. We'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve this evening's agenda as presented. All those in favor? All right, we have a unanimous vote of approval and the student member concurs. Next, we'll have the approval of the minutes.
Mrs. Williams, I do have 5 motions tonight to read. So the first motion will be for the approval of the closed session minutes dated Tuesday, August 15th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Gessford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. All those in favor of approving the closed session minutes dated August 15th, 2023, please raise your hand. All right, we have a unanimous 6 affirmative votes.
My second motion is for the approval of the business meeting minutes dated Tuesday, August the 15th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Are there any additions or corrections to the business meeting minutes dated August 15th, 2023? All those in favor of approval? Okay, we have 6 affirmative and the student member concurs.
My third motion is for the approval of the closed session minutes dated Tuesday, September 5th, 2023.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. We'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the closed session minutes of September 5th, 2023. All those in favor? Okay, we have 6 affirmative votes.
A fourth motion, approval of closed session minutes, open portion, dated Tuesday, September 5th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Gessler. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Okay, we're voting to approve the open portion of the closed session minutes dated September 5th, 2023. All those in favor? Thank you. We have 6 affirmative votes.
And the fifth motion, approval of the work session minutes dated Tuesday, September 5th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Gessert. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Are there any additions or corrections to the work session minutes of September 5th? All those in favor of approval? Okay, we have 6 affirmative. Student member concurs. Thank you, Mr. Gessert. Thank you, colleagues. We have all minutes approved as presented. This time we'll have our public comment portion of our meeting. Before I begin to call names, I'd like to read from Board Policy KD regarding the procedures for business meetings. Each person wishing to address the Board of Education is encouraged but not required to sign up prior to the meeting and may address any topic concerning Washington County Public Schools except personnel or student matters which clearly identify an individual or individuals. Individuals wishing to address the board who do not sign up prior to the start of the meeting will be required to sign the log located at the speaker's table for the purpose of the meeting minutes. Each speaker may speak for up to 5 minutes. We have a timekeeper. Mrs. Murray, would you like to explain how the keeping of time works?
When there's 30 seconds left, I will hold this up. When your time is up, I will hold this up.
All right. Okay. From the list of those who have signed up in advance, I have Mr. Joseph Jefferson. Mr. Jefferson, would you like to come forward, please? Good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. It's our first time ever meeting live in person, so I've called you so much, I feel like I know you. But unfortunately, I don't know you, so
It's nice to
Hello.
see you. Hello.
I come before the superintendent and the entire board to state why I believe the June 19th holiday should be added to the academic calendar as a fully observed day off. slavery was an egregious injustice, and to fully observe June 19th acknowledges our nation's systematic atrocities while representing an opportunity for historical education and awareness in addition to cultural celebration of the survival of the descendants of the enslaved in America. The celebration of June 19th is nothing new to most African Americans, yet it has only become a nationally observed holiday as of June 17th, 2021. To fully observe June 19th sends an important message of acknowledgement, understanding, appreciation of the sacrifice of past slaves. I understand that Washington County Public Schools negotiates which holidays will be observed as approved days off, and that there is a limit to the total number of holidays that must be approved. That being said, I am asking the superintendent and the entire board to suspend, override, make a special exception to the normal procedures regarding holiday approval because June 19th is different. We're talking about oppression and the freedoms that were finally afforded to over 250,000 enslaved individuals who were denied their independence for several years past President Lincoln's preliminary proclamation. I can think of no other historical event with such significance as to rival the importance of June 19th. And for this reason, I ask that this day receive special consideration. In fact, I would be deeply concerned about anyone working within an educational system who was hesitant to deem June 19th worthy of being observed, of an entire school system being off. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Mr.
your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. I have no other names on the list of sign-ups. Is there anyone who would like to come forward to speak during public comment at this time? Good evening. We have the log there. If you'll sign, you can do it after if you wish. Thank you.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Sovine, and members of the board. I don't have many prepared comments tonight. I just wanted to say it's good to see everyone here, and especially I wanted to thank our members from Salem Avenue Elementary who came out to be present at our board meeting tonight. WCTA is again inviting members to come out regularly to meetings so that they can be present, be informed, and be engaged in what's happening at the board level. So tonight we had asked, and it was a quick turnaround, we asked Salem Avenue Elementary and some Tech High folks to come out. So these guys are showing up with just a few days' notice, so we appreciate them being here. When you cut down to your work session and your board meeting, it gave us a scramble, so we had to rearrange some things. The opening of school has gone pretty well, I think, for all concerned. We're hearing a lot about time, teachers needing more time, So as we continue to work collaboratively with Dr. Sovine and his staff, we are going to continue to advocate for whatever kinds of time we can find in the school day for teachers to be able to get their work done. On that note, I'll begin to wrap up with a plug for the crab feed. I know I sent some of you, I think I sent all of you, right, an email invitation to the WCTA crab feed. It's going to be September 29th. It's our first time back since COVID closure, and so we're hoping to see lots of folks there. And if you can't come, you can still buy at-home crab feed raffle tickets. Just call the office and we'll help you out. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Mallon. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, thank you. Then we will bring an end to public comment. This time we'll have board member response to public comment. Colleagues? Okay, thank you. Our next item on the agenda, under old business, is the second reading of proposed changes to policy IGDL, student activities, eligibility, high schools. Good evening, Mrs. Rand.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Savine, members of the board. The Board of Education approved the first reading of proposed changes to policy IGDL at its public business meeting on August 15, 2023. Following the approval, the Policy Committee placed a public notice on board docs and the school system's website seeking comments from the public on the proposed changes to the policy. The committee has not received any comments on the proposed changes. Therefore, the committee is requesting that the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy IGDL.
Thank you, Mrs. Rand. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy IGDL entitled Student Activities, Eligibility, High School.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any discussion or any questions? No? We'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy IGDL entitled Student Activities, Eligibility, High Schools. All those in favor? Okay, we have 6 affirmative. Student member concurs. Our next action item is the second reading of proposed changes to policy KGA, disposal of real property.
The Board of Education approved the first reading of proposed changes to policy KGA at its public business meeting on August 15, 2023. Following the approval, the Policy Committee placed a public notice on board docs and the school system's website seeking comments from the public on the proposed changes to the policy. The committee has not received any comments on the proposed changes. Therefore, the committee is requesting that the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy KGA.
Is there a motion, please?
I think you meant to say second reading.
I probably did. Second reading,
No
excuse
worries.
me.
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy KGA entitled Disposition of Real Property.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any discussion, any questions? Okay, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy KGA entitled Disposition of Real Property. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, we have 6 affirmative. Student member concurs. We have an approved second reading. All right, our next action item is the second reading of proposed changes to policy KDB, Freedom of Information, Public Information Act requests.
The Board of Education approved the first reading of proposed changes to policy KDB at its public business meeting on August 15, 2023. Following the approval, the Policy Committee placed a public notice on board docs and the school system's website seeking comments from the public on the proposed changes to the policy. The committee has not received any comments on the proposed changes. Therefore, the committee is requesting that the Board of Education approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy KDB.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy KDB entitled Freedom of Information, Public Information Act requests.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any questions, discussion? We'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy KDB entitled Freedom of Information, Public Information Act requests. All those in favor of approval? Okay, we have 6 affirmative votes. The student member concurs. We have another second reading, and this is the second reading of proposed changes to policy ADC, use and possession of tobacco products.
The Board of Education approved the first reading of proposed changes to policy ADC at its public business meeting on August 15, 2023. Following the approval, the Policy Committee placed a public notice on Board Docs and the school system's website seeking comments from the public on the proposed changes to the policy. The committee has not received any comments on the proposed changes. Therefore, the committee is requesting that the Board of Education approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy ADC.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy ADC entitled Use and Possession of Tobacco Products.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any questions, any discussion? We'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy ADC entitled Use and Possession of Tobacco Products. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, we have 6 affirmative. Student member concurs. Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Successfully dealt with all policy changes presented this evening. Passed them all. We'll move now to new business. Our first item of new business is this evening's consent agenda, and we have Mr. Bakedel, our supervisor of purchasing here. Good evening.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Sovine. Tonight, I have 6 items for your review. These items were reviewed by our Purchasing Review Committee and are being recommended for approval, and staff is available if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bakedel. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the awards, renewals, and procurements for Chromebooks to CDWG at a cost of $2,721,517.50. Microsoft Unified Support Services renewal to Microsoft Corporation at a cost of $128,742.69. Supplemental reading instruction to Lexia Learning Systems, Inc. at a cost not to exceed $100,000. Supply and delivery of liquid propane gas to Thompson Gas at a cost of 50 cents per gallon, plus the OPUS price. Professional design services, Downsville Pike Elementary School to Mosley Architects of Maryland, Inc. at a cost of $1,737,840, plus the cost of a selected alternate. And generator preventative maintenance renewal to Kelly Generator and Equipment, Inc. at a 2-year total cost of $80,259.48.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any questions for Mr. Bakewell? Any discussion?
I just have one question. I think we purchased about the same amount of Chromebooks last year. Do you remember how much we paid per Chromebook last year?
Yeah, it was right around the same. I went back and looked at that quote. It's within a couple $1,000s.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't know that the price has changed at all. It was off a little bit. This year, we added 1,000 extra cases to supplement some cases that I think from technology have either gone missing or gotten, are unusable. So it's a little, that 1,000 extra cases made the cost a little bit higher, but just a quick subtraction of those cases, it was right on from what we got in FY23. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Bickford.
How much comes from the, was it broken out into 2 funds, right? Can you break it out into what the general fund's paying for us into the E-rate fund?
So
For
the
Chromebooks?
E-rate, we get 80%. So
80% E-rate? Okay.
Correct, right. E-rate, we get refunded 80% of the cost of the Chromebooks.
Got it. And where does this put us on, when's the next time we're going to likely need to replace another round of Chromebooks, do you know?
That I don't. I know. Mr. Allen has, that the
Multi-year
plan,
plan,
right?
yeah.
That every year he's renewing a 4th or a 5th of the Chromebooks per year, but I don't know where we are in that cycle.
Swapped out? Have we totally gotten rid of iPads? Sorry, I'm firing a bunch of questions at you, but, okay.
Thank you.
With the Information Technology Department, Mr. Allen couldn't be here this evening. We have, as far as students go, replaced all of the iPads at this point. We are 100% Chromebook. There are still a few iPads out there for some special needs students, things like that. But in terms of the general student population, we are 100% Chromebook at this point.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any questions? No? Okay. And we are ready to move to the vote. We're voting to approve the awards, renewals, and procurements as presented by Mr. Bickford. All those in favor? Okay, we have 6 affirmative, and the student member concurs, so we have an approved consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Moving next to the state and local fiscal year 2025 capital improvement program, lovingly referred to as the CIP. We have with us Mr. Prue, our Chief Operating Officer, and Mr. Rollins, our Director of Facilities Planning and Development. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mrs. Williams, members of the board, Dr. Savine. It's our pleasure this evening to present the FY25 through FY30 capital improvement plan. This is, upon your approval this evening, this is a document that will head down to the state of Maryland, to the Interagency Commission on School Construction, and also for submission to county government for their funding as well. First couple of slides I'll lead and then turn over to Mr. Rollins to walk you through and the members of the community through the nitty-gritty of what is in the CIP. But of course, as we always tell you, the CIP aligned to the Educational Facility Master Plan that this board approved in June. That's the plan of how we're going to maintain and replace items within our buildings, and also to replace buildings as needed. This plan does request the state local planning approval for the Downsville Pike Elementary School that this board agreed to move forward with the approval of the closing reports on Fountain Rock Elementary and Hickory Elementary School. We continue to address systemic needs. We can't just go all in on buildings, and we can't go all in on systemics. We've got to find a balance between the two of those, and this plan addresses that. It also identifies future large capital projects to really address our needs long-term, whether it's the efficacy of buildings, the efficiency of buildings, the aging facilities that we have, as well as with a goal to also reduce operating costs over time. A couple of assumptions and guidelines to this year's plan. We always talk about, well, what is the eligible construction cost? What is the part that the state is going to kick in and they're going to pay for? That is reviewed periodically, and a recent review based on COMAR actually reduced us from 79% to 78%. So, big numbers, $10,000 on $1 million is the reduction of what the state will pay for. So, a marginal cost reduction. Of course, that at 1% now falls on local government in terms of picking up that cost. Looking at the Downsville Pike Elementary School, what you can see, we've talked about the Built to Learn Act funding. That is a major portion of the funding for that project. Stands currently at about $19 million. This is a number that kind of ebbs and flows a little bit, which is based on what rate the state can sell bonds at, because of course the bond expense comes off the big dollars before they give us the usable portion. So this number is down slightly and has been over the last probably 2 years, but the sooner we get this used up, the better chance we have of getting it before it drops any further. Construction costs expected for this building reflect a statewide average cost per construction of $404 per square foot, which was previously $385 per square foot. So this is an increase from the last time we presented the numbers, which was during the closing report just this past spring. That number will likely go up again before we lock in our final price with the state. That will be truly our budget number for this construction project. That happens usually in the late spring, early summer of every year. And it's based on the actual cost of construction across the state. So that's how that number is derived annually. Building area has also been increased slightly over what we talked about in the closing report. We really think a lot about the blueprint and our needs for early childhood education. I think we were initially talking about 3 pre-K classrooms when we had the closing report. We've expanded to 4 4-year-old classrooms and 2 3-year-old classrooms. So that is an increase, which increases the overall square footage, which also increases the cost. So you'll see that as Mr. Rollins walks you through the program. And lastly, not to forget, we always present you budget numbers in today's dollars. We lock in prices as the state starts to allocate funding for projects. That's when the pricing and our budgets truly get locked in, so that what you see today are in real-time dollars.
Okay, so for fiscal year '25, we're asking for local planning approval on Dansville Pike Elementary School. Local planning approval is a process every school board has to go through with the state to where we provide justification to the state for the project, and when the state approves local planning, it signals that they are going to fund the project in future years. We also have 3 systemics this year at Boonesboro High School, Hancock Elementary, and Springfield Middle School to replace the HVAC equipment at those schools. At Hancock and Springfield, the HVAC systems there are from 1977 when those schools opened. So they have not been replaced. At Boonesboro, it's kind of a mixed bag of things that have been replaced over the years, but there are still components there from 1975 and maybe 2 from 1958, if I'm reading the drawings correctly. So it's time to replace those equipments, and that's what we're asking for here.
I think the other thing I'd say on the local planning approval on the elementary school is we did receive notification from the state that they've approved our closing report as replacement for a feasibility study. So a few moments ago, you approved the selection of an architect for this project, and one of the items we won't have to pay for through that project is for the architects to help us with the feasibility study because they approved the report already.
Thanks, Jeff. So for Downsville Elementary School, it's a 4-round facility, 3-year-old pre-K to grade 5 with a 688 student capacity, 82,000 square feet. This is the increase that Mr. Prue talked about to accommodate the expanded pre-K programs. We would anticipate that construction would start in the fall of 2025, would bid in the summer of 2025. We take the time from now until that point to create the ed specs, go through all the design process. The board will have at least 3 opportunities to approve the design as it goes through its process. We'll get the funding approvals from the state and local governments, permits, and then we can finally bid it and start construction in 2025 and open it in the fall for the 2027-2028 school year. The estimated cost is now $50 million, as Mr. Prue spoke about earlier. That is an increase from what we had stated in the closure report, and he stated the reasons why. For Downsville Elementary School, the funding is over several years. In 2024, we received 1.5, this fiscal year that we're in, we received $1.5 million from the county commissioners. That's going to be used to pay for the architect over this period of time as we begin the design process. So in 2025 for that project, there's no funding that's needed. The county commissioners already forward funded that design, and the state money doesn't come until we actually start construction. So in 2026, 27, and 28, you see the amounts there for the BTL money, which totaled 19 million. The state CIP, we'd need another 12 million, and the local government would provide 19 million for a total of $50 million over those fiscal years. Going beyond FY25 to 26 through 30, the 5-year plan, and we have a replacement elementary school number 2. That could be a consolidation of Greenbrier and Old Forge or Fountaindale and Potomac Heights. That remains to be decided by the entire school board in the future. That school will be similar in scope to Downsville Pike Elementary School. We expect it to cost a similar amount, similar size. And that would, we would be seeking this local planning request in FY27, and then design and funding requests would be 27 to FY30. We also have a replacement middle high school that we would seek local approval, planning approval in FY29, and design and funding request from 29 to 33. This would be a 1,500-seat grade 6 through 12 middle high school built on the east or the west side of Hagerstown to replace Clear Spring Middle and High or Smithsburg Middle and High. Again, that decision remains to be made by the board in the future. It would be about a 235,000 square foot building and would cost approximately $140 million as we sit here today. We also have systemic renovations in the out years, 3 roof replacements, 3 boiler and chiller replacements, and 2 HVAC replacements spread over those years. So in total, FY '25 through '30, you can see the numbers, the $19 million in BTL. We would be seeking over those years $102 million in state funding and would need $73 million in the local CIP match for a total of a $194 million program over those years.
I think what's interesting to note here is we look specifically at the state funding number. Governor Moore, for the fiscal year '24 budget, so this current fiscal year, allocated $400 million for capital school construction, and that was about $120 million more than had previously been allocated over a number of years. WCPS's take on that this year is slightly more than $12 million. So looking at the perspective of where we think we're going to be with capital funding from the state side over this next 5 years, until we get out to 2030, we're sort of in the window of where we would need to be. So the state funding match appears to be there, assuming that the governor is able to maintain $400 million in the general operating budget for the state. We've historically seen about $4 million from the county and local CIP. They always provide their assurance letter that they'll match, they'll provide the local match to what's there from the state. So these numbers similarly reflect that local match. So that's a process we'll have to work through with the county commissioners and the county administrator. But from the state side, the plan that we have right now looks like it is fundable, if that's truly a word. And it's a matter of keeping to work to match the funding on the local level. And I think with that, we're happy to answer any questions you have and seek your approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Mrs. Williams, there is a motion to approve for the state and local FY 2025 Capital Improvement Program CIP plan.
Thank you, Mr. Kessler. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Now we can have questions or discussion.
Yeah, I have a question. I know we have rough, was it 81-19 split for state and local funding. We're paying a little less than 40%. Could you explain what is not allowable in that 80-20 split?
Right, so there's several items. We choose to fund the architectural locally. The contingency, any change orders, the state does not cover. The state doesn't cover off-site work. So if we have road work involved that is off-site, off-property, or if we had to extend a sewer or something like that, any off-site work is completely on the local dime. I'm trying to think of it. Furnishings and equipment,
Yep.
That's on the local dime.
And the furnishing is included in the 50?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the other piece, we could, state rules would allow us to cover the cost of architectural engineering fees as under the state funds, but you still have a total that you have to get to.
6 one-way have to.
So we just choose to, from a perspective of, we're paying the architect on local funds, so we're in control of the architect and keeps it out of the state. That's, it's probably not that simple, but we'd like to think it is.
Also, with somewhat limited state funding, we like to put those state dollars into bricks and mortar and bear the relatively lower cost of design and the control that Mr. Prue spoke of with local funding.
Mr. Bickford?
How much money are we saving because we already have the land and didn't have to purchase new land?
I mean, it's hard to say. Off the top of your head, Rob, Jonathan Hager, the land there
was $1 million. That was 16 acres, so.
How long ago was that?
Yeah.
And that's about the size we'd be looking for an elementary school. That's probably
2014,
Yeah,
2000.
That opened in
10 years around
2016.
there. Yeah.
So-
It might have been 2013, somewhere in that range.
10 years ago, so I think you could expect, and it's always, the other side is, where can you get the land? How accessible it is. So, as we talked about, there's a couple of projects we're talking about for an elementary replacement. We are softly looking and quietly looking at land locations that are possibilities, but in a more densely packed area, it'd be a little harder to find the land, and it's going to cost more.
Yeah. And what kind of impact does that have on our deferred maintenance fund? By quizzing you, Jeff.
I don't have those numbers handy, but we could provide those to the
I'd
board.
just be curious to see what we'd save.
Within the next month, we'll be bringing the capital maintenance plan.
Got it, okay.
Or the comprehensive maintenance plan, so we can look
It'll
at it as we're going through there.
cut
We'll have the
there,
data for you.
Got it, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just reiterate what this elementary schools that would be replaced by replacement elementary school 2 would be, like what the potential options were?
Yep, elementary school 2 would be Greenbrier and Old Forge, or Potomac Heights and Fountaindale.
Okay, thank you.
President Williams, if I may, just looking at board action regarding the Downsville Pike Elementary School that is yet to be named. That represents a savings once it's open in terms of the general fund of right at $500,000.
I thought of one more question I had, I'm sorry. Sure. So the HVAC at Boonesboro High School, did you say, because I remember when we did the auditorium, that was part of, so it's just part of the building that still needs to be new HVAC?
Those systems that were just put in for the auditorium would not be replaced with this project.
Got it, okay, so
Yeah.
we've taken care of one part of the building.
Yes.
This is funding the other part. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Do we have portable classrooms at Greenbrier, Old Forge, Potomac Heights, and Fountain Rock?
Yes,
I believe all of them.
yes.
So when we replace those schools with new build, we will be eliminating those portables.
That's the plan, correct.
That is the plan. Educate me with regard to the state's view on portable classrooms, housing students, and how that figures into state-rated capacity and all of that. I mean, what is allowable?
So portable classrooms aren't counted toward the capacity of a school. So they're just, the state views them as, like, I guess we all do, as a necessary component to handle enrollment fluctuations. And so they don't count that, if you have portables, they don't count that as capacity at the school.
Okay.
I don't think I answered what you're asking for.
Yeah, you did.
If we have portables, chances are that the state considers that school overcrowded?
That's correct.
Got it, okay.
Right, so when you look at the EFMP in the spring, or at any time you pull it off the shelf, a school or any of the enrollment projections, if a school has portables, the likelihood is that it's north of 100% on state-rated capacity from an enrollment perspective. For instance, we talk about South High a lot. So that's a building that we just put the 2 8-pack portables into. So you've got 16 portable classrooms, plus the in-school suspension is a separate self-contained portable. So essentially 17 classrooms. So you've got, just roughly, if you use the number of 20 students per classroom, I think high school might be 25 or 26 for state-rated capacity. I'm going to use 20 because it's easy math. That's 340 students we're housing in portables that is above the state-rated capacity of that building. So it shows as significantly over state-rated capacity. We've managed that by adding additional classrooms outside the building, but the state doesn't consider that as building. The theory is, I think, really is that portables are temporary.
Right.
It's a temporary fix, not a permanent fix.
But in some situations,
It's become permanent.
it has become permanent. So 24 elementary schools,
25.
25 after the consolidation.
25 after the consolidation. How many of those have portable classrooms? So and I don't mean this to be a quiz or a test, but I'm thinking if it's the system's goal to eliminate portable classrooms, and I can give you a whole list of reasons why I would want to do that, having been housed in a portable classroom for a number of years.
18. 18 of our elementary schools have portables. The 4 you mentioned, there's 12 portables at those 4 schools. Potomac Heights, Greenbrier, Old Forge, and Fountaindale. but 18 schools have portables. I can add them all up if you want to know a total.
No, that's not necessary.
I think we have 83 classrooms, but that's classrooms, not buildings themselves. But we have 83 portable classrooms. So at South High, we have 2 buildings, but 16 classrooms. So when we say 83 classrooms, it's the number.
Right. So Washington County is not unique
No.
in its use of
Not at all.
portable classrooms. Other systems are in similar shape.
And I'm afraid with the cost of construction being what it is, they will become more prevalent.
More prevalent. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions?
With that being said, can't you, because didn't it cost us close to $30 million to do the renovate, or to add the portables at South High?
Or like
6 or 8, maybe.
Oh, that was, okay.
I can pull the number, but I don't have my computer up here in front of me, but maybe it was not.
We'll get to you.
Okay. All right.
But when you consider, cost per square foot, $404 a square foot for brick and mortar construction, the portables were a fraction of that.
Well, I was just thinking, because I thought we had to add in a bunch of extra stuff like the running water and all that stuff and the fence around. I thought that all that stuff added up to 30 million, no?
No, it wouldn't have been quite that much.
Okay.
Mr. Snyder?
Ask after hearing your last comment about the prevalence of portables in the coming years, but I don't see in the next 6-7 years any addressing of the overpopulation of high schools like North Hagerstown, South Hagerstown. So when do you think that would become a feasible reality to address the overpopulation of schools in kind of Center City?
One of the thoughts with the secondary consolidation school that we have listed, thinking that it's potentially in Smithsburg or Clear Spring, is that it also creates some seat capacity that we could move some students, change the secondary lines to move some students from middle and high schools in the Center City and push out a little bit. So that's the ongoing thought at this point. I mean, yes, there clearly discussion in the community about the capacity we have at our city schools. So the challenge we run into, and as we talk about eligible cost of construction, is we also have to be able to justify the seats. And while we have available seats in Smithsburg, in Boonesboro, in Clear Spring, in Hancock, at adjacent schools, that means the state won't contribute as much to the construction because they'll only contribute to the school, to the seats that we can justify. So part of the challenge we have is that we are consolidated. We have this at the elementary level as well. We're consolidated more around the county core and in and around the city of Hagerstown, and we're much more sparse, but we have available seats, but not where the students are. So that's the challenge we have from a facilities perspective, enrollment perspective. The board could choose to offer a charge to the Facilities Enrollment Advisory Committee to look at those lines and to look at those capacity issues is an option that the board would have to address that outside of a facility fix.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Rollins, thank you for answering my question on the fly. I appreciate that very much. Hey, colleagues, the motion, Mr. Gessford's motion and Dr. Zentmeyer's second is to approve the state and local fiscal year 2025 capital improvement program, the CIP plan. All those in favor? Okay, we have 6 affirmative. Student member concurs. Our motion is passed. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next item of new business is fiscal year 2025 budget priorities. Dr. Savine and Mr. Prue.
Yes, President Williams, members of the board, you recently had a work session where we focused on a review of the achievements and of this FY24 budget, and we also discussed priorities. The board reached consensus on budget priorities for FY25. I will yield to Mr. Prue to provide some additional details and a recap of the most recent budget work session.
Thank you, Dr. Savine, and thank you again, board members. I think just really a simple follow-up to Dr. Savine's comments. I think staff's recollection is that the board reached consensus on what they wanted to do for budget priorities for FY25, which was really to carry forward the same budget priorities that they utilized in FY24. During the work session, we provided you a worksheet that carried forward the budget priorities from '24, how the financial allocations had been applied to each of those budget priorities, and there was a blank column on that document all the way to the right for the FY25 priorities. We have filled in that column by moving all of the budget priorities forward. We're happy to answer any questions you have and to seek your approval on these priorities as staff develops the budget for FY25.
Just to add to comments, certainly we welcome feedback from the board based on work session. Just as a point of emphasis, while there was consensus on the priorities, there were also discussion and direction, specifically putting as a number one priority salary and compensation to attract and retain staff, and a close second as a priority was safety, security, mental health, and behavioral supports.
All right, I have a question.
Can we have the motion and the second, and then we'll go?
Sorry, I didn't know we didn't do the motion yet.
No, okay. Would you like to make the motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion. I move to approve the FY 2025 budget priorities.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Bickford.
All
Dr.
right.
Zentmeyer.
We spent a lot of time going over the big four, and it was supported so well that I was going, hooray, hooray, this is great. And then all of a sudden, we slipped in this next page, other initiatives, with really no discussion, and that's like, why was that scooted in there?
So we discussed, the other initiatives were there during the work session. We discussed them. In part, we felt like as we pulled the data together, we needed a placeholder to capture the things in the budget that really didn't meet the four identified priorities from the FY24 budget. So that's really where the other initiatives category came from. As you note, there's nothing in that column under FY25. So that's not an item that's carrying forward. Only the four items, the combating inflation, safety, security, mental health, and behavioral supports, salary compensation to attract and retain staff, and meeting the requirements of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. Those are the four priorities that staff will be working on specifically as we develop the budget. There may still be things that are just needed that don't fall into those four buckets, and we'll identify those for you as we present the budget so that you can clearly see them, if that makes sense?
Well, yeah, it makes sense. It's just that when we were reaching consensus, for some reason, I didn't realize that these were with the big four.
Those are history at this point. They're water, I mean, for lack of a better term, they're water under the bridge. They're in the FY24. They're in the FY24 budget, and unless the board makes an alternate decision during the upcoming budget process, those would be items that would continue, because that's typically, from a budget perspective, we present things that are added or modified, and sometimes things stay and sometimes things go, and that would be where I think the board would need to provide guidance to staff as to whether there were certain things they want to see eliminated as a budget is being prepared, and I maybe defer to Dr. Savine on that.
Just reflecting on the FY24 budget process, everything that's listed here in full transparency was listed and discussed throughout the budget process, just providing further clarity. You see the four agreed upon priorities, and to be accurate in our reporting, you just see those initiatives that are not directly tied to those four priorities, but was supported by the board in FY24 budget.
So there are no programs that are going to be cut to accommodate the other category.
There were no programs cut.
Okay.
So following up on that, you're not anticipating needing, I'm looking at the items that were unfunded, you're not anticipating needing a transportation routing specialist and those other items?
Until we meet with department heads and go over needs, it would be
Okay.
premature for me to say that. But that is an item that the Transportation Department has brought time and again.
So it could come up again, okay.
It could, but it's ultimately, as those items come forward, we'll be discussing the priorities with staff in advance of our department head meetings to say, these are the board's priorities.
Got it.
Please find a way that your requests meet these priorities and be able to defend them against these priorities as you present them to staff. And then it's a matter of estimating our revenues, looking at the proposals from staff, and seeing how it all flushes out to see if other items can come forward that may or may not meet the priorities.
Okay.
So my question was actually going to be very similar to April's. On those other incentives, I personally would like to know what other initiatives. I personally would like to know what other initiatives there are out there as soon as possible, because these other initiatives, especially the ones that were funded, they actually go against a lot of what our actual priorities were last year also, which were combating inflation, the salary and compensation. We could have given all of our staff more money if we didn't go and add a bunch of those positions. And I'm not saying that that's good or bad. I mean, if we need a position, we need a position. But, like that public relations lobbyist, that's one that, sure, it's nice to have, but it specifically goes against at least 2 of these 4. And that's why when we were in our meeting, I personally would like to make sure that we stick with what our actual priorities are, because for me personally, I would like to get rid of that position. So that's just something that I don't necessarily expect a response to. I just want to make that kind of be public and hope that we could kind of hold ourselves accountable to making sure we stick to our actual priorities here. And then if we have extra money after that, although I guess there's no such thing as extra money, but if we have more money after our priorities, then we can look at those initiatives. But I just really, really hope that we do a much better job of staying on track with our priorities this year.
Understood.
My thought regarding that is there are things that happen through the course of a year, things that are arise, needs that are realized. I'd hate to see us take the stance that we're not going to address immediate needs because we don't think they align with a certain priority. If the need is real and impactful, then I think it needs to be addressed. I'm looking at these things, and I want to make sure that I'm reading this chart correctly. Looking at what is here for budget priorities of other initiatives, there are 5 items that were funded for fiscal year '24. That's the payroll specialist, 2 elementary administrative assistants, 3 contingency teachers, and I heard Dr. Webster say in the work session that those are necessary to carry over into fiscal year 2025's budget. 3 new elementary teachers added to reduce class size, and those were added in fiscal year '23 and carried over to '24 instead of being eliminated. And 1 public relations lobbyist, okay? There were 4 positions that were unfunded, okay? And there's nothing in the budget priority column for fiscal year '25 for other initiatives. Nothing. Not the 4 that were unfunded in '24, but the understanding is that what was in fiscal year '24 will carry over, those things that I read aloud will carry over into fiscal year '25's budget. Correct? I'm reading that chart correct?
That's correct.
So I'd have to take exception to what my colleague said over here, respectfully, Mr. Evans. I don't know that any of these positions would add up to however millions of dollars it would have taken to give the pay raises that we had hoped to be able to give all 3 units of employees. I don't think the public relations lobbyist is making $1 million salary and benefits. So I have to take exception. I don't know that without having had more funding from the commissioners, there would have been no way that we could have given the salaries that I feel were due to our employees. And I do see value in all of those other initiatives. So I'll just go back and reiterate that I really think that we don't want to take the stance that we're not going to look at other initiatives going forward if the need is there, even though it may not fit one of these things that we're establishing as a priority, that we do need to have the discussion and really think about it.
And I don't disagree with you at all. I obviously, there's always something that comes up. I mean, especially with all the old buildings we have. I mean, something's going to
Right.
I completely understand that, and I completely agree that we shouldn't necessarily take anything off the table. At the end of the day, we're voting on what our priorities are. There's nothing to say that we can't come back at a later date to amend this, but to go back, I mean, the public relations lobbyist, that is probably more than the reduced and the unfunded combating inflation, the $178,000. That's probably pretty close to that. So, like I said, I'm not necessarily saying that what I'm saying is right or wrong. I'm just saying from my perspective, this is what I see, and I just think that, again, there needs to be some more discussion that's had before we start adding some of those other initiatives like we did in the past. So,
Understood. I'd just like to say that for me, as Dr. Savine said he heard in the work session, for me, salary and compensation to attract and retain staff is the #1 priority for me. And I also think that in doing that, we are addressing the initiative, the priority to meet the requirements of the blueprint for Maryland's future, because I think a big part of the blueprint is addressing the increased salary and making our way to what we need to be at in terms of starting salaries and compensation. So, and I'm very comfortable with having safety and security, mental health, and behavioral supports as our #2. Anyone else have anything that they'd like to say before we move to the vote?
I agree with you. I think I stated in the work session, top priority for me, salary. And you said it pretty eloquently about that is part of meeting the needs of Blueprint. And then second priority for me, of course, is behavior supports for our teachers, and along with mental health supports and that priority as well.
Yeah. President Williams, if I may, I
Certainly.
appreciate the comments of the board, and that's helpful, along with the comments that were made, very rich dialogue in the work session. So superintendent staff, we do appreciate that. That helps us in our budget preparations. I think it's safe to say that the needs of the school division were pretty great. And when you look at the 4 priorities, you see that we made good progress in each of those areas, but there are a number of items that we did not achieve. And as we reflect on those other initiatives, we recognize that at this time last year, we did not have any contingency positions in our elementary budget, and that decision was made to help relieve some overcrowding. I think, in all fairness, recognizing the discussion in the work session, the superintendent agrees with the board, and staff agrees that salaries and competitive benefits is our #1 priority moving forward. I think it's also safe to say a close second would be special education, mental health, behavior supports. We've made much progress in those areas thanks to the action of this board mid-year through last year and into this year. We are seeing some positive trends, but it's likely that we'll need some additional supports there. As we've worked with our team, and we're pretty close to engaging departments and schools with the action of this board on discussions regarding the priorities, we recognize that FY25 is going to be a lean year in terms of funding, and our goal will be to keep our priorities and keep the focus on the number one priority of this board and certainly the superintendent and staff, and that be providing a meaningful salary initiative along with strong compensation and benefits moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Savine. Anyone else? All right, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the fiscal year 2025 budget priorities as presented. All those in favor? All right, we have a unanimous vote of approval with the student member concurring. Thank you, Mr. Crew.
Thank you.
We have Mrs. Ram back to the table for another policy. We're looking at the first reading of proposed changes to policy CM, school district annual reports.
Thank you. The Policy Committee reviewed Policy CM at its public business meeting on September 14, 2023. The committee recommended placing the policy in the correct format and expanding the policy to include all provisions of the state law that govern required reports. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to Policy CM.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion, please?
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy CM entitled School District Annual Report.
Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Questions? Any discussion? No? We'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy CM entitled School District Annual Report. All those in favor? Okay, we have a unanimous vote of approval with the student member concurring. Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Mr. Prue is joining Mrs. Ram at the table. Our next item of business is the memorandum of understanding by and between the estate of Helen Z. Kreckenbaum, D.R. Horton, Inc., and the Board of Education of Washington County.
The estate of Helen Z. Kreckenbaum and D.R. Horton, Inc. are parties to a land purchase agreement for property fronting Halfway Boulevard and Oak Ridge Drive in Hagerstown. The Board of Education possesses a right-of-way that facilitates access to Halfway Boulevard from Lincolnshire Elementary School and which runs through the property that is the subject of the land purchase agreement. D.R. Horton has requested the Board of Education to execute a termination of the existing right-of-way to facilitate its development of the subject property. In exchange for the termination, D.R. Horton is willing to work with the board to convey in discrete fee simple access rights to the board and to construct a private driveway to facilitate access to and from Lincolnshire Elementary School from Halfway Boulevard and Oak Ridge Drive. The purpose of the memorandum of understanding by and between the parties is to formalize the coordination of the parties' efforts to terminate the existing right-of-way and to design, approve, and construct an alternate access option to and from Lincolnshire Elementary School from Halfway Boulevard and Oak Ridge Drive. Staff has been working closely with the parties to develop the memorandum of understanding and is seeking the Board of Education's approval tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion, please?
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding by and between the estate of Helen Z. Kreckenbaum, D.R. Horton, Inc., and the Board of Education of Washington County.
Thank you, Mr. Gaspard. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Any discussion? Any questions? Okay, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the memo of understanding by and between the estate of Helen Z. Kreckenbaum, D.R. Horton, Inc., and the Board of Education of Washington County. All those in favor? Okay, we have 6 affirmative. Student member concurs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item of business under consideration is the joining of the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, Maryland Association of Counties Time to Care Act Insurance Collaborative. Mrs. Ram?
Beginning January 1st, 2026, all organizations employing at least one person in Maryland must provide workers up to 12 weeks of job-protected paid leave to care for themselves or certain family members who meet specific eligibility requirements under the Maryland Time to Care Act, otherwise known as TCA. The TCA allows employers to purchase insurance to fulfill their obligations to provide TCA paid leave to employees instead of contributing to the state plan. It is anticipated that lower insurance premiums can be obtained when employers jointly procure the required TCA insurance. Therefore, the Maryland Association of Boards of Education and the Maryland Association of Counties have come together to form a collaborative under which school systems and counties will be able to secure coverage through MABE or MACO, which allows them to meet the TCA mandates while potentially reducing program costs and simplifying administrative requirements for the employer and employees. Currently, the Time to Care Act is quiescent, that is, until COMAR sets the contribution rates, which are expected to be quite high. Upon approval to join the collaborative, the Board of Education will enter into a memorandum of agreement which sets forth the terms and conditions of the collaborative.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion?
President Williams? I move that the Washington County Board of Education join as a member of the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, Maryland Association of Counties Time to Care Act Insurance Collaborative.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Any questions, any discussion? Yet another acronym to remember, TCA.
I mean, I'll just keep coming up with more. I'll do the best I can.
As long as you're willing to keep reminding what they are.
I have a running cheat sheet. We're good.
All right. Okay, no further discussion, no questions. All right, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the Washington County Board of Education joining as a member of the Maryland Association of Boards of Education and the Maryland Association of Counties Time to Care Act Insurance Collaborative. All those in favor? Okay, we have 6 affirmative and the student member concurs, so motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next item of new business is a donation to Marshall Street and the Job Development Program from Dot Foods. And we have Dr. Wilcox, our Executive Director for Secondary Education, with us. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Sobine, and board members. I am requesting approval of a gift of $10,000 from Dot Foods to Marshall Street School Job Development Program to be used to purchase sensory materials, assistive instructional materials, and playground equipment.
Thank you, Dr. Wilcox. Is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to approve a gift of $10,000 to Marshall Street Job Development Program from Dot Foods.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any questions, any discussion? All
Were those funds given for a specific purpose? Do we need to add that into the motion, or is it just a?
No, they're given for the school to use as they see fit, and that's currently how the principal would plan to spend the money if it was approved.
Okay, thank you.
That I'm
Yes.
seeing from
I
Principal
saw that in the letter, I
Stair.
just didn't know if it had to be said in the
Yeah,
motion or not.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? Any other questions? Okay, we're voting to approve a gift of $10,000 to Marshall Street Job Development Program from Dot Foods. All those in favor? Okay, we have 6 affirmative. Student member concurs. We have a passed motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dot Foods.
Yeah. Big
It
thank
was
you.
a very sorrowful situation in the passing of the employee's husband, but very nice gift, very nice gesture. Okay, our 8th item of new business is the appointment of Washington County Board of Education's representatives to the Maryland Association of Boards of Education's Legal Services Association.
Do you need a motion?
I do need a motion.
All right. Madam President, I move to approve the appointment of the nominated individuals to serve as Washington County Board of Education's representatives on the Maryland Association of Boards of Education's Legal Services Association.
And I'm looking for those names, and I'm not seeing those names in the packet. Mrs. Ram, your name is being put forward as, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
April. It's me, Melissa.
I know, I just want to
An attorney and a
affirm
doctor.
that it's Mrs. Ram as the LSA representative and Dr. Zetmeyer as the alternate. Do I have that correct?
You have that correct.
Thank you. All right. So the motion is to approve the appointment of Mrs. Ram, our Chief Legal Counsel, as the LSA representative, and Dr. April Zetmeyer as the alternate to serve as our Washington County Board of Education's representatives on the Maryland Association of Boards of Education's Legal Services Association. All those in favor? Okay, I have 6 affirmative, student member concurs. And maybe I did have that and I overlooked it.
Somebody second it.
I don't know.
I'll second it.
All right,
All right,
put Mike seconded it.
shall we have a redo? Let's-
Mike
no?
seconded it.
All right, Mike seconded it. Thank you. Retroactive second on Mr. Gesford's part. All right, that concludes new business this evening, and that brings us to the superintendent's report. Dr. Sovine.
Yes, thank you, President Williams, members of the board. Today is National Information Technology Professionals Day. Our IT staff are unique in our school system because they have the high responsibility in supporting both students and staff. I'd like to invite Travis Fouché, our Manager of Applications, Analytics, and Data Architecture to come forward. That job title alone kind of gives you an idea of the high level and highly specialized work that our IT staff, what they do. Mr. Fouché is going to share a few remarks on the vital contributions of our technology department.
Thank you, Dr. Sovine, President Williams, members of the board. Today, September 19th, is IT Professionals Day. IT Professionals Day was established in 2015 and is celebrated on the third Tuesday of each September. It is intended to honor the IT professionals such as the WCPS network and systems staff, the applications and database teams, the cybersecurity experts, and the technical support specialists. They do the critical but often unseen work to keep our networks, applications, schools, and classrooms running while safeguarding our data. In a rapidly evolving technological landscape, it is essential for our IT teams to stay current with the latest developments to effectively manage and maintain our systems. The women and men who comprise the WCPS IT team are truly adept in their field and are indispensable, not only for the day-to-day functioning of our schools and offices, but also for cultivating an environment that fosters innovation and empowers our teachers and students to excel. It takes a formidable skill set and a unique set of talents to be an IT pro. Often their work remains invisible when everything is running smoothly. Today we take the opportunity to acknowledge and express our gratitude to the dedicated individuals at WCPS who have chosen this profession. Furthermore, we encourage students to explore the field of technology and consider pursuing a career in this dynamic and essential domain. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Fouché, and we appreciate what you and your colleagues do behind the scenes. It's much appreciated. Thank you. We're celebrating a good bit in advance, but Monday, October the 2nd, is National Custodian Day. Like IT, our custodians serve both students and staff in many important ways. There are major players in creating positive learning environments, providing clean and safe schools. Now, Mr. Michael Stauffer, our Director of Maintenance and Operations, will tell us a little bit more about the critical role that our custodians play across our school system.
Thank you, Dr. Savine. Good evening, President Williams, board members. Custodial work can be a tireless and thankless job, leading to custodians often being overlooked and not getting the recognition they deserve outside of the schools. They show up day in, day out, make buildings and occupants' lives easier and safer. Well, National Custodial Workers Recognition Day is on Monday, October 2nd, and it is meant to encourage appreciation for the people that keep our buildings running smoothly and occupants safe. So being a professional custodian is an honorable career. Maintaining facilities like ours takes hard work, extensive knowledge, perseverance. It is not for the weak of heart. The role is diverse, and they do so much more than just clean. They help guide people. They work hand in hand with the administration, locate and report needed repairs, and also perform building maintenance. And without them, buildings would fall into disarray, people wouldn't be able to do their jobs, and students wouldn't have a good, safe, and clean learning environment. So the custodian is often the favorite employee at a school. If you've ever been to elementary, you know what I mean. So they are constantly visible, helpful in many ways, first responders in emergencies at schools. This is why students and faculty know them, appreciate them, and enjoy celebrating them. National Custodial Workers Recognition Day is a chance to address the importance of this position. Sometimes the smallest gestures can go a long way. Consider giving your custodians a handwritten note to say thank you, that highlights your favorite characteristics that they have. Have the students give them a group thank you. Use social media to express your thanks for a job well done. Simple gestures can make National Custodian Workers Day special. So as custodians keep facilities in top shape, take time out of your day to show them you notice their hard work, whether it's on Custodial Workers Day or any other day of the year. While they've always been critical players in keeping facilities clean and safe, they continue to transcend their responsibilities and go beyond their job descriptions. They do much more than what their job descriptions say. So for all this, I say thank you. So join me in saying thank you to your custodial team, not only on October 2nd, but often throughout the year. Thanks to each and every one of our custodians.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Custodians and Mr. Stauffer appreciate the strategies so that we can appropriately express our gratitude for those that take care of us each and every day. I have some exciting news to share this evening. One of our schools is in the national spotlight. Smithsburg Middle School is a National Blue Ribbon School. This recognition is the product of a dedicated staff, hardworking students, and strong school leadership. I know the principal, Mr. Matt Hoffman, instills in his team the value of growing and strengthening relationships with students. They truly care about their students, and they believe they can achieve at very high levels. Congratulations to Smithsburg Middle School on being recognized for this national achievement. CPS is celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, September the 5th through October the 15th. That's September the 15th through October the 15th. As I've visited schools recently, I've seen how students are celebrating the contributions of Hispanic culture and Hispanic people in our school community and society. These lessons provide enriching learning opportunities and really help our students expand their worldview to thrive in a global workforce. Lastly, I have one additional calendar reminder for this week. This Friday, September the 22nd, is an early dismissal day for students. Students will be dismissed from the schools 2 hours early this Friday, September the 22nd. President Williams, members of the board, that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Savine. Next, we'll have personnel actions. We have Dr. Webster, our Associate Superintendent for Administration and Leadership with us. Good evening.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, and Dr. Savine. As discussed earlier during closed session, there are several staff changes for your review. At this time, I ask for your approval of today's personnel actions.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, September 19th, 2023, as presented in closed session.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Okay, colleagues, we're voting to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, September 19th, 2023, as previously discussed in closed session. All those in favor? Okay. We have 6 affirmative, a unanimous vote. So those have been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Under reports to the board, we'll have board member committee reports. We'll begin with curriculum and instruction. Dr. Zenmeyer.
We met last Friday at RAMPS. Dr. Anders, Supervisor of Library, Media, and Instructional Technology, and Lisa Scampiero, our Ed Tech coach, presented an exciting overview of the possible uses of artificial intelligence as a resource in our classrooms and how we might create and cultivate a responsible student approach to the use of AI. Kelly Longerbeam, coordinator of early childhood, early education, delivered the great news that our pre-K program has surpassed pre-COVID numbers. We're fully enrolled with 1,086 students. Pre-K provides a myriad of foundational skills that give students a boost in kindergarten, laying that foundation for successful learning for the next 12 years or 13. The lives we are a-changing. Dr. Willow finally reviewed textbook purchases and an exciting new addition to the CTE program in aviation. Those students who are in aviation maintenance will have an opportunity to build their own plane. Now, my husband built our first airplane, so I can tell you it is going to be so exciting. In fact, Dr. Savine has graciously agreed to be the first passenger, and I'm thinking I should volunteer to fly the plane just to see his face. Thanks to Dr. Willow and his team for their vision in implementing instruction with fidelity. We aim for every single student in Washington County to be fully engaged in a curriculum that capitalizes on their unique gifts and prepare them for life beyond our walls. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Facilities, Mr. Gesford.
Oh, wait, I forgot something, sorry.
No.
Our next meeting is September 27th, 10:30 at Sharpsburg Elementary.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gesford, facilities.
Thank you. We recently met on August the 29th. A couple of items that were discussed, I'm not going to go into detail, but the maintenance and operation team, Mike Stauffer gave an update for the summertime projects. Project update also with Rob Rollins and Mike Stauffer concerning schools roofing, where we were with that. Architectural selection for the Downsville Elementary, we discussed that, and of course tonight we voted on it. And we also went over the capital improvement program. Rob was able to give us some details on that. So very successful meeting, and we decided to meet again on September the 26th at 1 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Gesford.
You're welcome.
Finance Committee, Mr. Evans.
Nothing new at this time.
Thank you. Human Resources, Mrs. Murray.
Human Resources met on September 12th. We had a very long and excellent meeting. I'm going to try to run through as best I can. Joni Burkhart, Supervisor of Professional Learning, spoke about this year's Teacher Induction Academy. We had 232 new teachers attend, giving them knowledge of the curriculum, school climate, and how to navigate the system as a whole. Another induction academy is also being planned for June to help the teachers hired throughout the school year. She also stated that we have 8 mentor teachers, 1 mentor teacher for 35 to 40 new teachers. And she said, ideally, one more mentor teacher would be a great help. Dr. Jen Webster, Associate Superintendent for Administration and Leadership, talked about the district learning progression for staff on school climate. We believe all students deserve a safe and supportive learning environment. Schools had a professional development in August that was customized to their buildings, and another professional development will be scheduled for this month. Jeff Cruz spoke on the rollout of the new UKG time card system, which seems to be going well, and it helps to see if we have our employees properly deployed. The HR department was also a tremendous help in help to payroll for implementing the new system. Sandy Hammond, ESP, as of September 12th, 104 ESP positions are open, 51 are paras, 17 positions had offers pending, and there has been an uptick in applications. Lindsay Dorr said of the teaching staff that they had 11 vacancies. 3 were direct teaching positions because of late resignations. And Regina Keller, ANS, said all principals and AP positions are filled, but there are a few senior staff vacancies. And then we will meet again in January.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Mr. Bickford, Policy Review and Development Committee.
Policy, at our last meeting, we discussed some of the items that came before you today as second reads, as well as the first read for school district annual reports. We also discussed administrative hearings and appeals, distribution and posting of community informational materials in schools, and goal setting. We're still working on language with that, so that'll be coming up at our next meeting, which is on the 12th of October at 1 p.m.
Thank you. Mr. Snyder, anything with student government?
Yeah, the Washington County Association of Student Councils, or WCASC, will be meeting next week here, actually in the board conference room, as well as the Boonesboro room and the accompanying conference room, on September 26th, next Tuesday, I believe. And I invite any members of the board or anybody with staff to come in, visit, stop by, talk to the student leaders. They are just as excited to see you as you are to see them. I'm very excited for it. It's our first General Assembly of the year. I'm really excited to introduce myself and meet all the new student leaders of the year. It's September 26th, next Tuesday.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Okay, that concludes our committee reports. Move to miscellaneous business. Under miscellaneous business, we have, as always, our future agenda items list. Colleagues, you should have received a list in your packet. A reminder that we're not meeting on the first Tuesday in October because of the MABE conference. We will be meeting on October 10th, which is the second Tuesday in October, and we'll be meeting in work session. We will be spending time talking about safety and security, and we will also have a presentation of the audited financial statements and the auditor's report. Let's see what else. We'll have a discussion of core values, legislative initiatives, and the watch list items for the 2024 Maryland legislative session, also in that work session. And then for our business meeting on October 17th, we will be looking at the second reading of proposed changes to policy CM, school districts annual reports that we did the first reading of this evening. And we will be looking at the comprehensive maintenance plan that was mentioned earlier, as well as the adoption of our board's 2024 legislative program and the approval of the legislative response team members for this 2024 legislative session. If you have any suggestions for agenda items, please let a member of the Agenda Planning Committee know of those so that we can work to get them on the schedule. That brings us to board member comments. Mr. Snyder, would you like to begin down there?
Sure. A couple of things. I actually had my first and second school visits of the academic year last week. I went to Barbara Ingram School for the Arts on Monday. I spent a day just going around, introduced myself. I shadowed a couple of friends who I knew at the school. I really think that I got to introduce myself to a large amount of the school. I'm really thankful to Barbara Ingram, Dr. Habermehl, and the school in general for having me. Everyone was very friendly, very welcoming. All the teachers were very welcoming. It was truly an amazing atmosphere. I hope that I was able to introduce myself, the resources and opportunities that I can inform students about and provide. And I also visited Smithsburg Middle School, and I sat in on one of their student council meetings after school. I didn't get to tour the school for the day, but it was really nice to hear younger perspectives, and it was really good to see. It was a really full meeting. There was over 20 kids there, and it was really good to see students getting engaged in leadership at such a young age. So, another thing, today is voter registration day. And the Washington County Association of Student Councils and Maryland Association of Student Councils are working with the League of Women's Voters and the Civic Engagement Coalition, I believe, to organize voter registration drives in schools, including student governments at North Hagerstown, South Hagerstown, Barbara Ingram, and Williamsport that I know of. So I'm really excited about those initiatives.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mrs. Murray.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate Smithsburg Middle School on achieving Blue Ribbon status. That is just very exciting. And also, I had an opportunity to go to Smithsburg Elementary School to read to Mrs. Carver's third grade class. And they let me bring my favorite book, Thank You, Mr. Falker, by Patricia Polacco. They were such a good audience, and they even asked me if I would please come back and read to them again, which of course, I will. So it was a great, great time. That's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Mr. Bickford.
I just wanted to say I really appreciated the curriculum and instruction meeting being held at Ruth Ann Monroe. Really fun to walk in, see the many students, including the growing preschool students, as well as the Judy Center, which classrooms. And we met a new teacher who had been hired because they'd gotten so many new preschool students who signed up, I guess, after the start of the school year. And she was so excited to have her first job, yet she's been, it was 25 years in child development. Then she was a parapro at Morgansville and was so excited to be there, and it was just very infectious to see that. And then I'll back up Dr. Zentmeyer. It was really cool to hear about this program where kids will actually get to build a plane and it will be flown. So I imagine, we won't spoil the details because I'm sure that'll be presented at a later meeting, but it's really neat nonprofit that makes that happen at an affordable and a very affordable option for kids to learn some really significant skills. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Mr. Gesford.
I have nothing tonight.
Okay, Mr. Evans.
I'm afraid of being outdone by Dr. Zentmeyer, so I'm gonna not say anything. Except I always wondered if you fly a plane like I drive my car. I don't know.
Okay. Well, yes, I do.
Okay.
I usually listen to the Good News podcast in the morning. And this morning, it was interrupted by a text from Washington County Public Schools. And what good news it was. Congratulations to North High student Allison Gala, whose painting was chosen for this Saturday's Porch Fest poster. The painting will be auctioned, and a portion of the money will go to the Music Instrument Collection Program, which is a local nonprofit that collects instruments and redistributes them to local students. Thank you, Allison. Want to enjoy a great day of music. Stroll along Prospect Street this Saturday. Back to you, President Williams.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Well, it's hard to believe that September is almost over. Last week was a busy week for me. I had quite a few committee meetings. I was in attendance at the curriculum and instruction meeting, and that was certainly a great meeting, great discussion, and I'm excited about the aviation program at Williamsport High School, and about as close to flying a plane as I'll ever get. We'll be having lunch or dinner at Runways Grill out in the north end of Hagerstown. I also had a policy committee meeting and a legislative response team meeting last week, and 2 Zoom meetings. Both of those Zoom meetings were MABE meetings. I had a Policies and Procedures Committee meeting and a meeting of the Legal Services Association. I had an evening Zoom meeting as the board's liaison to Washington County's Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So it was truly a week of meetings, and all of them interesting, and I enjoyed each and every one of them.
Has anybody told you you're retired?
Yes, someone brought that to my attention the other day. They asked me when I was going to retire, but I love doing the work, and it's good work to do. And I enjoy being with all of you, so thank you for that. It's been a great day of meetings. Thank you so much. Those of us who will be at conference in October, I'm looking forward to that. So we'll see you there, and the rest of you, I'll see you when I see you, and for sure I'll see you on October 10th here. All right. Thank you so much. We are adjourned.